African farmers compound, and it's based on a typical Igbo dwelling, homestead, circa 1800s. This compound is being built at the Frontier Cultural Museum in Staunton, Virginia. This museum is a museum that endeavors to showcase how all the people that lived in that area, how they lived in their home countries at the time before they came to America. And prior to this time, there was a representation of the cultures, the Europeans that came to that area. There's an English farmers compound, a German farmers compound, and an Irish farmers compound. Then two American frontier farm compounds showing the progression, how the American homes were built when people first settled, and the progression, you know, how they integrated their cultures, and then how they Americanized the homes. And so, like I said, prior to this time, all those cultures were represented. A couple of years ago, somebody said, you know what, there's something missing in this exhibit. And what is missing is the Africans. The Africans were here also. And they're the ones that did most of the physical work, and they had so much, they contributed so much, and we're not showing where they came from and how they lived. And to their credit, they decided that they were going to set that right. And when they did a research to know that the Africans that were mainly in Virginia, that where did they come from, they found out that a majority of them, 40%, were Igbo from Nigeria. And that is why they decided to base it. It's representing all West Africans, but it's based on an Igbo compound because that was the largest influx that they had at the time. And so Mr. John Avoli, who was the former mayor of Staunton, along with some others who are on the board for this museum, traveled to Igbo land, and they did their research on how to build the houses. Some of the other homesteads, the governments had helped, and the houses had been lifted from their locations, like in Ireland and in Germany, and been lifted, packaged, shipped, brought here and reconstructed. But not so, you know, for ours. So they went and did the research, and they set about that they were going to build this homestead. Now, when they started building it, they saw that it wasn't as easy as it looked. An African dwelling might look easy, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. A cement mixer could not mix the clay that was used to build the house. You know, they thought they could use their equipment to build it. Then they found out that no, you needed physical labor, but they didn't stop. And so as this work went along, they got in touch with Professor Jack Njoku, and they were stuck, they didn't know what to do, and he said, okay, I'm going to send out a call, I'm going to rally my people, and we're going to come and build our home in America. And so that's what he did. Some people volunteered and went, and they tried different ways of mixing sand. The sand here is too coarse and gritty. They found a way to sift it, soften it, get some clay, mix it, get the right consistency, the right color, and so on. And the building started. As for the African aspect of the significance of this Igbo compound, what you get to see is this debunks a lot of lies that were told and myths about the Africans at the time that we were invaded by Europeans. These people themselves show, if you go to the Irish homestead, the same building materials that were used there are the same building materials that were used in the African. Whatever people had around is what they built with. So the Irish house was built with mud, and because they have stone, they use stone. The German house was built with the same mud that we built with, and they had a lot of forest and wood. The English house is the same. Actually, the roofing that they had in their houses were not even as sophisticated as ours. It was like grass, whereas ours was, you know, created and more artistically and more in a more sophisticated manner. And when people come to this museum to look at it, all of these things are pointed out to them. And people are so wild, and I think that's why it's so important for our people to go and see, because sometimes we believe in lies that have been told about it. The person is supposed to know the truth about themselves, but we've gone so far that we don't even know the truth about ourselves, that we were on par with everybody else, and that this was arrested development. So another thing that they show is when you go to the American farm, they show that the way Americans build their houses, they show you all the African influences. In Europe, I guess the weather wasn't always that warm. They never had verandas and places for people to sit. But it was the Africans that introduced that, because in our natural dwelling, you know, we had the eaves of the house and we would sit outside and do work because, you know, on a hot day, and so we can chat with our neighbors. We introduced that. They showed their sewing. The patterns in the quilts that they have that are now American quilts, a lot of those patterns came from Africa, because who did the sewing? It was the Africans who were being used as slaves. The food out there is influenced, you know, by African cooking. Because if you came from Africa and somebody says you're the cook now, you're not going to all of a sudden know how to cook like a European. And so you cook like an African. And so this for me is one of the main things that you learn from this exhibit.
I believe that everybody has every reason now to really be proud. I mean, everybody that is African and black, whatever you are, to associate with this project, it's of such significance. And you have also described the similarities in architecture from this time, and how even the Igbos that came here originally and the Africans influenced the architecture of this country.
This is only a promo. Be on the lookout for a detailed production on the Igbo Farmers Compound. To see more of the progression, visit the Frontier Culture Museum website and click on the 1700s West African Farm Construction tab. Be part of this renaissance for Black and African people. Make physical appearance for manual work on the Igbo Farmers Village exhibit at the Frontier Culture Museum in Staunton, Virginia. Stay in touch. Join Victor Aghadi on Facebook.